He can't believe it's been so long. David is headed north on his way home to see his family in Pennsylvania. It'll be his first time back in over 2 years since landing his dream job hundreds of miles away. The big city life has slowly drawn him from his humble roots. Caught up in chasing his dreams, time has flown by. Hints of remorse and guilt have crept in these past few weeks as he's felt the growing distance from his family. A laid-back, quiet, somewhat reclusive but ambitious 26-year-old with a love of nature and the outdoors, he's decided to take a scenic route home on I-79 through the mountains of West Virginia. It's a quiet Thursday evening, and David is enjoying a relaxing drive through the twists and turns of the mountainous landscape with almost no traffic. As he's taking in the sight of the sun beginning to set over the rolling peaks, he sees a pop-up on his phone's GPS saying that the road is closed 30 miles ahead and asking if he wants to accept an alternate route that will add an hour and a half to his trip. Slightly annoyed, but not wanting to get caught in traffic, he accepts the new route and continues about 10 miles to the next exit before turning onto a quiet, winding 2-lane road through the woods. As night sets in, he checks his GPS. 30 miles to go until he's back on the highway. He hasn't seen another car, a house, or any sign of civilization since exiting. He sighs and turns his focus back to the road. The last thing he wants is to hit an animal or get stranded in the middle of nowhere. A thin fog begins to set in as the road ascends up a mountainside. David tightens his grip on the steering wheel. At this point, he just wants to get back on the highway and get home. As he rounds a curve and the road levels out at the top of the mountain, he sees something in the road ahead through the mist. He slows down and his heart sinks as he approaches a large oak tree that has fallen across the road from the hillside. Exasperated at his luck, he grabs his phone to figure out what to do next. It would be at least 45 minutes to get back to the highway. There was a road to his left about half a mile back, but it doesn't seem to be on the map. What he does see on the map is another road a couple of miles to the west on the other side of the mountain that connects to a state route that leads back to the interstate. He figures that the road he just passed must connect to the other road across the mountain, and it's worth a shot, despite not being on the map. He turns around and heads back. As he approaches the road, he sees that it has no sign, but at least it's paved. As he turns onto it, he's keeping an eye out for signs that it's a dead end or a private road. He sees nothing of the sort, so he continues on. The fog thickens as he makes his way across the mountaintop. The road is in poor shape, with potholes and patches of crumbling pavement, so he's moving slowly and carefully around the rough areas. Straining his eyes as he looks ahead, with rapt anticipation of the turn onto the other road materializing through the fog, he hears a sudden thump from the back of the car, shortly followed by the unmistakable sound of a flat tire as the tire pressure light pops up on his dashboard. He slows to a stop and slams his hands against the steering wheel in anger. He can't believe this. It's been one thing after another, and now he's stuck on an unmarked road on top of a remote mountain. To make matters worse, he checks his phone to see how far he is from the other road. A prickle of fear creeps up the back of his neck. His phone shows no service. He takes a minute to collect himself, then gets out to look at the tire and figure out what he's going to do. He immediately sees that his driver rear tire is completely flat. His car doesn't have a spare tire, only a fix-a-flat kit. He grabs his phone and turns the flashlight on to try to see where the tire is damaged. Maybe he can use the fix-a-flat and get far enough to have it replaced. The woods is silent and still around him, with a soft, cool breeze meandering through the trees and fog. As he's on his knees looking for the puncture in the tire, he hears a tapping sound on the road behind him. Before he can turn around to look, a small black pebble bounces across the pavement next to him and stops at the tire. He jolts up to his feet and whips around, his back against the car. Silence envelops the mountaintop as he squints through the fog into the woods. There's a slight upward incline, but not nearly enough for the pebble to have fallen on its own. "Hello?" He calls out into the emptiness of the woods, listening intently. Silence. No movement but the gentle, cool breeze on his face. He slowly gets back into the car, his eyes fixed on the woods as he opens the door. He needs to gather himself and figure out what he's going to do. He starts to catch his breath and decides he's going to drive slowly up the road to see if he can get cell service. As he puts his foot on the brake pedal to start the car, he glimpses something streaking across the road behind him in the red glow of the brake lights through the rearview mirror. It passed too quickly to catch what it was. A jolt of fear shoots through him as his adrenaline rushes. He finds the start button and jerks the shifter into drive as the engine starts. He starts driving carefully up the road, still aware of the tire and trying not to make it worse, his eyes fleeting between the road and his phone, looking for any sign of service. After about half a mile, a deep sigh of relief escapes him as a single bar pops up. He stops the car and hastily opens the glove box to find the roadside assistance number on his insurance card. Hands trembling, he dials as quickly as he can. The connection is weak, and the dial tone breaks up as it rings. He hears what sounds like a girl on the other end, but the connection is so weak that he can't make out any words. Desperate not to lose the call, he continues to drive up the road, frantically pleading for a clear response. Just as he hears the last fading glimpses of the voice and the call disconnects, the color drains from his face as he hits the brakes. Through the fog, there's nothing but woods ahead. The road stops dead into the dense forest. No houses, no driveways, nothing. David tries to calm down and collect himself, but a sense of panic is starting to set in. His only option at this point is to backtrack until he can get service and call for help. He begins to turn the car around in the narrow road. Forward, reverse, and forward again. As he's making his final turn to head back the other way, his headlights flash past something in the woods. A little girl, standing motionless in a dirty, tattered white dress, her arms at her sides and her face concealed by dark, matted hair. David pauses for a moment, peering intently into the woods at the girl. A swirl of foggy mist obscures the headlights. As it clears, only trees and darkness remain. The girl is gone. The tire forgotten about, David guns it. He doesn't care if the tire flies off the wheel. His only thought is getting off of this road and as far away as he can from this mountain. His knuckles white on the steering wheel and desperately focusing on keeping control of the car, a panicked yell escapes him as he slams the brakes, skidding to a halt. The dust begins to settle in the beams of his headlights to reveal only more woods ahead, stretching deep into the quiet darkness. David is motionless, every muscle in his body tense and frozen, his pulse pounding in his head against the quiet idle of the engine. His breath stutters in sharp, uncontrolled bursts as he forces his eyes upward to the rearview mirror. Dust and fog move eerily in the red glow of the brake lights. As the dust fades, he catches a trace of movement through the fog. Too afraid to breathe, his unblinking eyes fixed on the mirror, he stares into the darkness. A gentle breeze swirls the fog to reveal the girl's dark, matted hair as she slowly walks toward the car, her arms limp at her sides, her sallow, pale skin blending in with the fog. Lethargic, unnatural, almost mechanical steps inch her closer. David's adrenaline takes over. He opens the door and lunges out, sprinting into the woods in his best guess of the direction of the road he had turned off of. He runs as fast as he can, desperately trying to avoid the trees and obstacles on the forest floor. He stumbles over a fallen branch, tearing his jacket, but quickly regains himself. The fog lifts as the forest begins to gently slope downward, revealing the faint light of a sliver of moon in the sky. Exhausted, David falls to his hands and knees, his deep, gasping breaths rustling the fallen leaves beneath him. As he catches his breath, He raises his head to see the dilapidated, deteriorating remains of an old cabin before him. The structure leans to one side, partially sunken into the earth. The windows are long since gone, and the crooked door hangs open on one hinge. The moonlight glows faintly against the thick moss on the roof, and the ivy that has grown in weaving tentacles up the sides. Still on his knees, a slow, faint creaking slices through the silence from above him. His adrenaline still rushing, he jerks his head up and recoils violently back onto his elbows. Hanging from a large tree branch, swaying gently in the breeze, are a man and a woman, lifeless, the color drained from their swollen faces. They are dressed in simple, old-fashioned clothing, blood dripping slowly onto the brittle leaves from a wound in the man's chest. David stumbles to his feet and starts to slowly step backward, his eyes wide, fixed on the motionless bodies. As he takes a step back, a stick cracks under his foot, and he feels an ice-cold hand close around his left wrist. His head snaps down to meet the empty, pitch-black eyes of the girl, her filthy, tangled hair no longer hiding her expressionless, lifeless face, marred by patches of rotting, decaying flesh. He recoils violently, falling backward. Scrambling to his feet, a fresh shot of adrenaline pumps through him as he races past the cabin, deeper into the woods. Minutes pass, how many he doesn't have the faintest idea. Pure fear drives each frantic step and blocks all thought until he finds himself crashing through the brush down a steep hillside. Rocks and branches tear at his clothes and body as he flails uncontrollably down the hill. Finally, he comes to a stop in a soft, level patch of grass and leaves. Pain courses through his body, but he doesn't seem to be seriously injured and is able to slowly get to his feet. He looks ahead toward a faint reflection in the moonlight, running across the ground. His body shaking, he stumbles toward the reflection, and a deep exhale escapes him. A road. His phone is gone, back in the car for all he knows. Still gripped by adrenaline, he scans nervously up and down the road. Nothing, just silence. He tries to get a hold of himself and grasp a thought as his mind races. He ran east from the car, so this must be the road he turned off of. The fallen tree must also be to the north, so his only option is to head south. His heart sinks as he remembers seeing no sign of civilization for miles as he drove up the road earlier. He turns nervously to start walking down the road, his head on a swivel and his ears listening for any sound. He begins to hear something in the distance. A slow dragging, a slight rumble, getting closer. His eyes widen and his heart skips as the glow of headlights emerge around the bend ahead. He stands in the middle of the road with his arms up, determined not to let the car pass. An old Chevy Blazer slows down as it approaches David. He limps around the vehicle to the driver door as the window creaks down, revealing the calm but suspicious expression of a rather plain-looking older woman wearing a battered flannel shirt. "Ma'am, please, can you help me? Do you have a phone?" stammers David. The woman looks at him for a few seconds, her eyes fixed on his, her expression unchanged. "Did she touch you?" she asks, rather sternly. A look of surprise and confusion comes over David's face as he takes a half-step back. No, he stutters, becoming aware of the slight sensation of icy needles prickling in his wrist. The woman looks at him for several more seconds, her expression unchanged, then says, "Come on, get in. I'll get you to town." "Thank you," David gasps as he stumbles hastily around the vehicle and gets into the passenger seat. The old truck's transmission clunks into drive, and it begins to move forward. David's eyes are locked on the road ahead, his back pressed hard into the seat. His hand brushes past something in his left pocket. He slowly reaches in and pulls out the small, deep black pebble that had skipped across the road to him. Dread creeps through him. He hadn't picked it up, yet here it was. The woman glances over at his hand, and the color drains from her face as her eyes betray her sheer terror. Her head snaps up, and she slams the brakes, skidding the truck to a crooked halt in the middle of the road. Standing motionless in the weak yellow glow of the truck's weathered headlights is the girl, her face again concealed by her matted hair, except for a black, lifeless eye peering through a gap in the tangled strands. The woman is frozen, speechless, her eyes locked ahead and her hands clenched tightly around the steering wheel. "What does she want?" whispers David in terror. The woman shows no sign of hearing him. Her eyes still fixed ahead, she slowly reaches over and unbuckles her seatbelt. Her shaking hand moves to the door handle, and the door creaks open. David's eyes are locked on the girl, still paralyzed in his seat, the gaze of her eye unflinching. The woman carefully steps out of the vehicle onto the road without saying a word. She abruptly turns around and starts walking back the other direction, leaving the vehicle running, the door hanging open, the headlights casting their ominous glow onto the girl. Minutes pass, the rumble and tick of the old engine piercing the deathly silence. David is too afraid to move a muscle, his eyes stinging as the cold night air creeps into the truck through the open door. He can't even blink. The girl takes a slow step forward, and another. David's blood turns to ice as she approaches, her lingering, dragging steps creeping closer to the truck. And then, darkness. Silence. The truck completely shuts off. Engine, lights, everything. David can see nothing but the faint fog of his breath in the dim moonlight as he exhales in a sharp gasp. Panicked, he grasps desperately for the door handle. As he finds it, icy fingers clamp around his wrist, and his vision goes white. His sight slowly returns, and he finds himself standing in a small house, the cabin in the woods. Except it isn't falling down. In fact, it's quite clean and orderly. And it isn't dark. The deep grain of the rough-hewn oak glimmers in the dappled sunlight shining through the trees, drops of clear morning dew sparkling on the windows. Something shuffles behind him, and he whips around to realize he isn't alone. He stumbles back as he sees a man, a woman, and a bright-faced, smiling little girl sitting at a small table in the middle of the room, eating breakfast. David stammers. They don't seem to notice him, as if he isn't there. He slowly waves a hand in front of the woman's face, but she shows no response as she turns to smile at the little girl. "Martha, finish your bread, darling." "Listen to your mother," the man says with a soft smile. "This batch won't last much longer, and we don't want to waste it." David recognizes the man and the woman. They're wearing the same plain clothes as when he found them hanging in the woods. The girl's parents. His mind races. Why is he here? And how? Is he stuck here? His body still tense, he looks uneasily around the room as the family eats. "Martha," says the father with a smile. "Would you go fetch your mother some water?" "Yes, Papa," the girl replies in a soft, sweet voice. She bounces up from her small wooden chair and grabs an old metal bucket from the shelf behind her. "Thank you, dear," says her father. "Don't play in the creek too long. We have lots to do today," he adds with a sly, loving smile. She smiles back with a giggle and hurries toward the door. David hesitantly follows her outside, his presence still completely unacknowledged by the family. She turns and starts skipping through the woods, the dry fall leaves crackling beneath her feet as a cool breeze flows through her clean, shining dark hair. David follows her down a gentle slope to a small creek. The view is serene. The morning sunlight and bright blue sky peer through the tangled trees as the creek winds peacefully through the forest floor, the hypnotic sound of its soft trickle accompanied by the songs of birds and chatter of wary squirrels. Martha sets the bucket at the edge of the creek and gracefully hops from rock to rock, peering intently into the clear water. She bends down and turns over a stone, and then another, her bright green eyes searching eagerly for treasures. She pokes her hand beneath the surface of the cold water and retrieves a small, pearlescent white pebble. She dries it on her dress and inspects it closely in the palm of her hand, smiling gleefully. As she's reveling in her find, the sharp snap of a gunshot pierces through the peaceful quiet of the woods. Martha's hand snaps closed around the pebble as she whips her head around back toward the cabin. Panicked, she hops back to the edge of the creek and runs up the slope, the bucket forgotten. David follows her. As she approaches the cabin, she slows and peers forward nervously from behind a large sycamore tree. David can hear the sound of men's voices from the top of the slope, the roof of the cabin just visible over the edge. Martha sneaks quietly, like a cat, further up the slope from tree to tree until she is just behind the cabin. David is also concealing himself as best he can, though it seems rather pointless. He eases his head around a tree to see 4 men in Confederate military uniforms on horseback, standing in a half circle around Martha's father. "Been hiding all the way up here in these woods this whole time, huh?" sneered the man directly in front of the father in a gravelly southern drawl. "Just you and your pretty wife enjoying the countryside while we's all fighting the war," he says, a wicked smile exposing stained brown teeth as he leans to meet the eyes of Martha's mother in the window. He bends downward and spits a large glob of tobacco juice at the father's feet, raising his head back up to meet the father's eyes with a malicious, pondering look. David glances over to see Martha dart below the edge of the slope to the back of the cabin. She stealthily maneuvers through a gap in the boards into the dark crawl space below it. He follows her path to the cabin and looks through the opening she entered. She has crawled through the dirt to the front, her white dress now caked with mud, and is watching the scene outside through a small sliver between the boards. David looks around the edge of the cabin to see what is happening. "You know the punishment for desertin'. It's miles back to town, and we ain't got no extra horses," the man in the middle says menacingly, his hand massaging the revolver on his hip as his face contorts into a horrible smile. "It'd be a shame to leave your pretty wife out here all alone," he says as he nods to one of the other men. The other man hops off his horse and walks toward the cabin. Martha's father starts to move toward him as the first man draws his revolver and points it at the father's head. "Ch-ch-ch," he says, shaking his head slowly. "You stay right where you is." The second man kicks the cabin door open, breaking the bottom hinge, and grabs the mother. She screams as he drags her outside and pushes her next to her husband. "Tie their hands," says the leader. The other 2 men dismount and roughly tie the couple's hands behind their backs as they push them to their knees. The leader looks up and around, searching. "Yeah, that'll do fine," he says, gazing upward at the thick oak branch. He unclasps a coil of rope from his horse's saddle and tosses it onto the ground in front of the helpless couple. Martha's father turns his head to his terrified wife and whispers something, too quietly for David to hear. "Make it quick," says the leader. "I want to get back to camp before sundown." 2 of the men grab Martha's mother first and yank her to her feet. Her father starts to get up, screaming in agony, but the man behind him kicks him down and drives the butt of his rifle into the back of his head, slamming his face into the ground. The man grabs Martha's father by the hair and pulls his head up, a look of helpless agony on his bleeding face. "Watch," growls the man into the father's ear. "You done this." Tears stream down the father's face as he watches helplessly. As the men lift him to his feet, he looks longingly back toward the cabin, then hangs his head as one of the men slips the rope around his neck. David watches in horror as the men remount their horses, Martha's parents swaying and twitching as they hang. As they ride away, the leader turns around, draws his revolver, and fires a single deafening shot into the father's chest. He holsters the weapon, spurs his horse, and disappears through the trees with the others. David closes his eyes. When he opens them, the woods is dark and silent. The tree branch is barren, Martha's parents gone. He brings his hand up and opens it to reveal the pebble, its glassy, pearl-white surface glinting in the moonlight. He stares out into the dark woods, the aura of the place oddly calming. "I'm sorry," he whispers into the darkness, as thoughts of his own family that he's become drawn apart from fill his head. A gentle breeze flows through the trees, causing the cabin door to creak quietly on its hinge behind him. He turns around and looks through the open door. He can see the table and chairs just as they were left by the family. He steps inside. Time and the elements have weathered and dulled the rich texture of the wood. A layer of dirt and dust have coated the inside through the long-lost windows and failing roof. The old floorboards creak and crackle beneath David's feet. On a mantel by the old stove is a small metal picture frame. David picks it up and wipes the dust and grime from the brittle glass to reveal the family that had been there so long ago. Martha, smiling, sitting on her mother's lap, her father standing behind them. David carefully places the picture back on the mantel and sets the pebble beside it. He pauses for a second and turns back quietly toward the door. He pushes it open and his whole body jolts, falling backward into the cabin as a noiseless scream escapes him. A figure is hanging from the tree, its old flannel shirt rippling in the breeze. The woman who had stopped for him on the road, her cold, lifeless eyes staring at David with her face frozen in a look of shocked terror. David crawls backward frantically as the cabin door slams shut in front of him. Dead silence. It's nearly pitch black, only a faint wisp of moonlight peeking through the windows. Icy dread creeps through him as he looks hysterically around. A faint footstep thuds softly on the floorboards in front of him. Then another. David can't see anything as he scrambles backward helplessly. He slams into the stove, and the pebble drops from the mantel into his lap, its deep black color against his jeans like a hole into the abyss. He clambers against the stove, hands grasping frantically in the darkness to try to pull himself up. He finds the mantel in his panic and sends the picture careening to the floor. The sound of shattering glass echoes through the cabin. He makes a break for the door, but the floor gives way, sending him tumbling into the cold, dark crawl space below. He flails manically as he tries to crawl toward the faint moonlight glowing through the opening in the boards in the back of the crawl space. He pauses as he feels crunching and cracking beneath his hand. He looks down into the white, empty eye sockets of a small skull. In sheer panic, he continues to the opening, but it's far too small for him to escape, and the boards won't budge. He hears the snap of bones behind him and whips around to see Martha drawing closer in a contorted, crab-like crawl, her black eyes and rotting face materializing through the darkness as she approaches. David is pinned in the corner, unable to move or make a sound. He feels her icy hand grip his wrist, her putrid, lifeless face inches from his, as his eyes turn up into his head into darkness. The cold breeze winds through the quiet night in the empty, silent forest. The cabin door creaks softly over the faint sound of the trickling stream below.